Tonight on Nation to Nation, we're digging into mining. First Nations fear they'll be pushed to sign off on projects fast.
We actually truly believe that the water will be more valuable than any gold in 100 years.
What can we learn from a mine collapse in the Yukon?
And there was concerns about it, the long-term effects of it seeping into the groundwater, because at that point, cyanide can spread.
And a Nunatsiavut government official warns Canada is charging ahead without consent.
You know, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up when you do have the energy minister at the G7 talking about this.
Welcome to Nation. I'm Karen Pugliese. So we're going to be talking a lot about mining today and also on future shows. Why? Well, because Prime Minister Mark Carney has decided mining is Canada's future. He sees it as a way out of trade dependence with the US as politics down there become more and more unstable. Right now, China controls 90% of the global supply of critical minerals. Critical minerals are essential to almost everything we use today, from smartphones to electric vehicles to missiles. But China has a history of cutting off countries when they get into political disputes, as they are right now with the US. The world needs a secure supply of critical minerals, and Carney wants Canada to step in and be that supply. Everything he's done so far, the One Canadian Economy Act, a critical mineral agreement signed with the G7, trade deals with Germany and France, all point towards that plan. And the 2025 budget had goodies like tax breaks and new investments for mining companies. So where do Indigenous people fit in? Most of the critical minerals are on or near our lands, and there are fears, environmental risks, and also great economic opportunities in this for Indigenous communities. In this first brush, we look at concerns. Chief Jeff Kopenes of the Enigamine First Nation has a moratorium on mining, but he says he's been feeling the pressure already to greenlight projects. I caught up with him in Winnipeg. So always good to have you, Jeff Kopenes, Chief Jeff Kopenes. Thank you so much for being here again. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the One Canadian Economy Act, and sometimes known as Bill C-5. I know that you've been opposed to not necessarily development, but the way it's happened under this bill. Can you tell me a little bit about where you're sitting on this?
Yeah, we remain concerned. You know, in our territories right now, we're being surrounded by proposed mines in particular. There's 3 mines. There's one south of us, the New Gold mine, and there's 2 mines being proposed north of us, another gold mine, another nickel mine. They seem like they're advancing at a pretty rapid pace. And the reality is that the Ojibways of Enigamine in our state of emergency just aren't able to engage in good faith. We're not able to negotiate in good faith. As I've mentioned before, we've had so many deaths, 46 deaths in 4 years. It's really taken its toll in our community. And until our state of emergency is addressed and lifted and focused on, which again, we really feel like we haven't gotten the attention that it deserves with the number of losses that we faced, that's the priority. And right now, we're nervous. And we're nervous that these mines are going to move ahead without our consent, or possibly even without our involvement. And we're hearing that there's other First Nations that are partnering with these mines, so we think that they're moving ahead. And the One Economy Act just makes it more taking place at a more accelerated, rapid pace. And so our community members are concerned, and rightfully so. If you look at the area where the mines are being proposed, that's where our drinking water comes from. There's a number of fresh bodies of water, interconnected lakes, spring-fed lakes that we derive our water directly from. And so we're concerned that these fresh bodies of water are going to be impacted by the mines, and we're not going to be able to have any type of say in them whatsoever. So we've been pretty clear to Canada, we've been pretty clear to Ontario, that we're not against development, but right now we're losing so many lives that it's impossible for us to even sit down at the table to negotiate any types of agreements with the proponents. And so we're just asking for more time. And we're asking for an investment in our states of emergency. And once the state of emergency is lifted, there may be a time and there may be a place that our community wants to engage in mining, but we're just not able to right now. The primary directive that I get from our elders, our women, and our youth is to fight for the waters, to fight for the lands, to fight for our future generations. We actually truly believe that the water will be more valuable than any gold in 100 years if you're talking about economic benefits. So we're talking about long-term sustainability and a long-term economy that, someday there might be pipelines for waters, and maybe someday we'll be exporting our waters to other parts of the country. I know that there's water shortages in Nova Scotia right now, for example. So we're concerned about C5. But certainly, I think the key message is that we just don't want to be left behind.
So, I mean, there was a First Nations summit. You were there in July. Did you hear, I kind of heard a lot of talk from Mark Carney that was like, he was promising chiefs that, if the provinces are there and you're not there, I will side with you. And although it doesn't say it in the bill, he said quite a lot about making sure that he's only going to choose projects where everybody's on board. Did that reassure you at all?
Yes and no. It's interesting to hear, and it was good to hear. It was good to look the Prime Minister in the eye, got to stand a few steps away from him, and got to listen to his words, take them to heart. And he seemed really committed to First Nations. I'm not sure, again, how you marry that. On one hand, where he's telling the provinces, telling the territories, we're going to build the country at this rapid pace, including pipelines, where at the other hand, he's telling First Nations, I'm only going to build with you. Something in between there, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to work together. For us, again, we're worried we're going to be left behind. We're worried that there's going to be an economy developed, and without our participation, without our involvement, without jobs, without benefits. Again, back to my earlier points, our families really want to see our leadership fight for the water. That seems to be the imperative, to fight for the environment, to fight for our future generations. And so that'll be the position that we take. At the same time, there are some real difficult decisions to be made. For example, we're looking at building a store in our community. We've got a trailer right now, but we're looking at building a real store. And some people say, well, maybe you should build that store to service the mines if they're going to happen inevitably, with or without your consent. And so that's the discussion. And right now, it's tough. It's a real tough position to be in, but we'll just keep listening to our families. We'll just keep listening to our community members and doing the right thing that they want to see.
Yeah, so when you're saying being left out, you're talking about a mining going ahead, you refuse to sign the deal, and then because you refuse to sign the deal, you get no
That's
benefits out of it, right?
Or poor benefits, or lesser benefits. And people already say that's what happened in the New Gold mine, that's just south of us. We were at last minute at the table, we were the last to sign an agreement. Truthfully, I believe it was under duress because we should have been under a state of emergency earlier. We've been going through this difficult situation in our communities for a long time, including the loss of life. And so I'm just worried again that we get a poor agreement or no agreement at all and left out.
Well, I'm just curious, is there any other kind of development? Because, really, this is a vision that the Prime Minister brought in to deal with the threats from the United States, to deal with threats of tariffs, which came true, that are hurting the Canadian economy. But if you were to build your own economy, would mining be the way to go? Or does your community have a vision that's maybe different from mining?
We've never seen it. I've worked in government 20 plus years. I've worked for First Nations for, my whole life. I've yet to see a mining or a mine turn a community around. I've yet to see mines even meet their commitments. The New Gold mine says they're supposed to be meeting 25% Indigenous employment. We don't see any of that going to First Nations. They're claiming that it's going to Métis. I'm not sure exactly how that's happening or how they're verifying their Indigenous citizenship. So again, even on the commitment side, it seems like mines are falling short.
Coming up next, what a Yukon mining disaster did to the local groundwater and Haggard Creek in the Yukon. Stick around. Welcome back. Next, we're looking at a mining disaster that shocked the Yukon. In June 2024, a massive slide at the Eagle Gold Mine sent 4 million tons of rock and waste crashing down the mountain. The waste included cyanide, a toxic substance used to extract gold. Now that cyanide, along with arsenic and lead, is leaking into groundwater and streams. Dead fish have been found downstream, and the mine is now in receivership. The First Nation says this never should have happened. Now, gold is not on the critical mineral list, but what can we learn from what happened? APTN Investigates reporter Rob Smith has been following this story, and he joins me now. Rob, thank you for being here. Can we start at the beginning? Can you tell me a little bit of the history of the Eagle Gold Mine?
Yeah, the Eagle Gold Mine started up in 2020, just outside of Mayo, Yukon, in the central Yukon. It was a regulatory nightmare, according to Chief Donna Hope, from the jump. In 2022, just 2 years into their operation, a major study commissioned by the Yukon government found 82 recommendations on how to clean up the operation, fix leaks, fix safety concerns at the mine site, and the First Nations just assumed to be a matter of time before a major disaster happened at that mine.
Well, what exactly happened in terms of this spill at the Eagle Gold Mine? How bad was it?
It was, according to the Minister of Mines up there, a catastrophic event. If you don't really get a sense of the size of it until you go to the site, it is a massive mound of contaminated tailings or ore that was piled up, and about 4 million tons just broke away from the pile, and half of that escaped containment and went directly into the wild, into the environment. And concerns are still there for especially the fish. Cyanide was the big worry. It's a localized poison that evaporates quickly, but there are long-term effects for the fish if they swim through. There could be physiological issues such as reproductive system being damaged, less eggs, which could be catastrophic for a salmon run that is already ailing. And there was concerns about it, the long-term effects of it seeping into the groundwater, because at that point, cyanide can spread in extreme cases hundreds of miles.
That does sound just like absolutely frightening. Now, the mine has been placed into receivership, and that happened just days after the slide. What does that mean? Like, who's in charge of the site and the cleanup and everything now?
Well, it's being run by the Yukon government. Yukon taxpayers are on the hook for the cleanup, the remediation, and it puts into sharp focus mining in the Yukon. It is the latest in a long line of mines that have been abandoned, and that estimates of cleaning up these mines are running from the hundreds of millions to the billions of dollars to clean up what the industry left behind after they dug up the riches and then left the Yukon.
You know, there's so many communities that are going to be considering mining in the future, and I guess I'm wondering what they can learn from this. Like, in the big picture, what does this say about mining regulation, and is this just one bad actor? Or are we looking at a failure of a broader system here?
Well, speaking directly to the people of the Yukon, they are definitely demanding updating their regulations. The regulations for mining in the Yukon date back to the gold rush days of the pickaxe and the placer mining ways, the mom and pop ways of doing things, and not these big industrial sites. So critics feel like it's a Wild West show up there, that regulators need more teeth to enforce the rules that are in place. As I said, there was Victoria Gold was getting hammered with with fines and whatnot, but it didn't change their actions. It doesn't seem like it changed their actions because the Yukon government didn't have the teeth to follow through with those recommendations. So that's where things stand. Just tougher regulations and the muscle behind it to make sure that companies follow through.
Thank you, Rob. Now, you can find Rob's coverage at APTN News / investigates. Coming up next, is the Prime Minister getting ahead of himself, announcing all these deals before consultations are done? Let's find out what the Deputy Minister of Land and Natural Resources at Nunatsiavut government has to say. Welcome back to Nation. The federal government is pushing ahead on its critical minerals as part of its energy strategy, and it made a big announcement on October 31st at a G7 meeting in Toronto. Minister of Natural Resources Tim Hodgson named several projects moving forward, including a Strange Lake, a rare earth mine in northern Quebec. But the project hasn't finished environmental review or consultation with Inuit yet, even though the road to the mine crosses through Labrador across lands managed by the Nunatsiavut government. Jim Gowdy is the Deputy Minister of Land and Natural Resources for Nunatsiavut. He joins me now. Thank you for joining me, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
So, were you surprised to hear Strange Lake announced as part of a G7 minerals package?
Yeah, somewhat, I guess. We knew was dialogue happening, obviously in Ottawa, and with the province of Quebec and with the proponent of the project. But it took us somewhat off guard that the energy minister was talking about this project at the G7, as well as some of the statements made by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, because I mean, like it hasn't really gone through yet, and I guess there is a problem, or maybe not a problem, but some concern over the road to the mine that's passing by lands managed by your government. Can you tell me a little bit what the concerns there are?
Yeah, so the proposed project includes a road that's over 100 kilometers long from actually the Quebec border to the Labrador Sea, which crosses through the Labrador Inuit settlement area. Earlier proposed roads actually crossed through Labrador Inuit lands, which would have initiated an environmental assessment under the Nunatsiavut government legislation and the Labrador Inuit Land Claims Agreement. So the problem with this is it crosses not only very closely to some of our Atlantic salmon and char rivers, it crosses the migration route of the George River caribou herd, which is undergoing, the largest ungulate crash in North American history.
And what could the impact of a road be on the caribou herd?
I think there's a lot of scientific data out there that most people who are involved in indigenous harvest and indigenous rights are aware of. There could be a massive impact to the migration routes, so it's a major area of concern for us.
And that caribou herd has been at risk at times. Am I right?
Yeah, it goes through roughly 70-year cycles, though what we think happened in this cycle was, I guess, a perfect storm, where we're super predators now as humans. There's no place to hide, for lack of a better term. We have snowmobiles, high-powered rifles, GPS, computer equipment. So in the past, they've been able to kind of recede from human contact and regrowth the herd. But in this case, we're not seeing that, quick rebound that happened in the past. And was arguably their worst crash. So we know that, in the 1950s, the last time it happened, it didn't go down quite as low as it did this time.
Okay. And then the other thing I want to ask you about is that while this particular project at Strange Lake is more on the Quebec side and on that boundary, there's an even larger rare earth deposit on Inuit lands. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when the preliminary work was done, I guess, on this, and this would have been back in the late 70s, 1980s, I believe it was by the Iron Ore Company of Canada, they actually discovered, I'll call it it's a similar deposit. The only thing is there's a border crossing it. The larger portion of the deposit, which higher grades, are on our side. And when we signed our land claim agreement, we took the opportunity to select that area as Labrador Inuit lands. So lands that we would have, a definite say in, and lands where we would also, you know, get a portion of the subsurface mineral um monetary value of that.
So am I right in assuming that you're going to be keeping an eye on this project because once the infrastructure is there, they might want to move over onto Inuit territory and potentially talk about the rare earths there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a much different dynamic than what we're in now. I mean, we would have final say if a project ever went ahead. The issue we have now is, with some of the statements coming from the federal government, I don't think any Indigenous group, whether you're in Newfoundland and Labrador at this moment, have jumped on to this project to say, yeah, we're on board. We certainly have. I'll give due credit where credit is due. Torngat Metals, the proponent of this project, is, they're very open. They've been into our communities multiple times. They've met with our government multiple times. It's just a bit concerning to kind of hear this from a federal side now. It almost gives the impression that this project is a go, and I don't think they're anywhere near that yet. I mean, we've seen proposed roads and what they want to do, and they're actively, doing work now to kind of get the baseline data for that. I haven't seen mitigation measures. And, I think that Indigenous groups throughout Canada need to be the primary benefactor of large scale industrial projects that are happening within their regions. And up to this point, I haven't seen anything that, I could brief my minister on why we would take all the risk and, the benefits. I don't see the benefits there at this point.
Okay, so definitely you're looking for more consultation to happen. There is the Vosi mine that is on Inuit territory. How has that been working out in terms of benefits to the community?
Yeah, actually, and I think if you look at the Voisey's Bay mine, which is one of the largest nickel mines in the world, we signed an impact benefit agreement with them as well as the other Indigenous group in Labrador. Arguably, those are best impact benefits agreements by Indigenous groups, not only in Canada, but in the world. So um, I think redefining our economy might be a little bit strong, but it's certainly created a number of advantages for Labrador Inuit, but also it was the impetus, you could argue it was the impetus for our getting our claim finally signed. I mean, we were 33 years in before Voisey's Bay came along, and once that happened, we kind of fast-tracked negotiations with the provincial government and, settled our claim. So there's rights issues here, there's economic benefit issues here, there's cultural and social issues here that, we need to be cognizant of. And Torngat Metals and the federal government need to be cognizant of. There's provincial issues here that I don't think have been rectified. I mean, if you're a Newfoundlander and a Labradorian, you have to question why would you let a company build a road across the province if there's no benefit to you as a resident.
Thank you for talking to me today, Deputy Minister.
Thank you for having me, Karen. Always a pleasure.
And thank you, Nation to Nation audience, for joining us. I'm away next week, but Fraser Needham will be here for you. If you missed any part of today's show, you can listen at aptnnews.ca /podcasts. Good night.